Hi, I'm Holly Jarosky, and I'm a friend of the Grundy Center Historical Society, and I'm here with Kevin Keister and Daryl Shuey, both longtime firemen for Grundy Center. We just had a couple of questions about the firemen and the kind of fires that you put out. But first, can you tell me a little bit about what it means to be a small-town fireman versus a big city fireman, where you picture a fireman that lives in the house and slides down the pole? How is that different from what it is here in Grundy Center?
Well, small town firemen, we do all our training. We have jobs just like everybody else does. We either come from the job when there's a fire call, or we come from our home, or if we're just out and about, versus the firemen that live at the station.
Sure. And can you tell me a little bit about maybe the training that you go through to become a fireman for a small town?
Well, right now we have to take Firefighter 1 course and that, but back when I started, we had our own training, and once a year we'd go down to Iowa and do training at the college at Iowa. But other than that, we do all of our training once a month. We train on some different thing, and then we have Firefighter 1, 2, and 3 that you can take and learn more about it.
What does it take to become a fireman? Can anyone be a fireman?
You just got to be 21 years of age and put in an application. You get voted on by the department, whether you can be on or not, and then you're put on a probation period, and after that you can move up to a regular fireman. And we also have a junior fire program where kids 18 years old or older can become junior firefighters and come and learn about it. They just can't participate in a fire itself.
Okay. So I guess explain to me a little bit about the ranks of the firemen. I mean, you start out, and I know there's like a probationary period, and then there's also a true fireman. Can you explain that a little bit?
The probationary period, that's when they vote you on to see if you're going to be a fireman, and you're on probation until we have 33 members usually, and would be a waiting list then. If we have less than that, you're voted right on to the department. But the probationary period, once you're voted on, you become a firefighter, take the training, and then you want to work up the ranks. You're a firefighter, and if they think you'd be a good officer, they have voting I think it's in November, and they vote to see who's going to be the fire chief, the captain, assistant chief, captain, lieutenants, 2 lieutenants, and if that's how you work your way up the ranks, just by proving yourself.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit about what those duties are for each position? I mean, what does the fire chief, what's he responsible for versus the lieutenant?
Fire chief is responsible for the whole scene, and then he's got an assistant chief under him, and they usually don't go into a fire and that. They do everything from outside so that they're always knowing what's going on by the talk on the radio and that. And then after that, it goes down to the captain. If one of the other ones are gone, they take their position, and then it goes down to first lieutenant and second lieutenant, and then.
Okay.
So,
can you explain to the viewers what kind of trucks we have in Grundy Center and what their purposes are?
Well, we've got grass truck, responds mainly to grass, ditch fires, field fires, and truck that goes with that would be a tanker to haul water for it, make sure it has water. And they usually go to rural fires most of the time, or the field fires. And then there's a pumper that'll go out to field fires and respond to any fires. That's your number 1 pumper. That's mainly his job. And then there's pumper tankers that have 1,000 gallons of water on, and they're a backup bumper, or if they need more, or they might respond to the neighboring towns if they need mutual aid. And then there's a rescue truck that always goes to accidents. It's got the jaws of life and all the equipment to pretty much handle any emergency out on the roads.
Sure. Can you explain too a little bit how your job is different responding to an accident versus an EMT? Like what kinds of things are the firefighters responsible for?
Well, firefighters usually help with traffic control, and when they get there, if people are trapped, they're the ones that get the jaws out and get the vehicle cut apart so that they can get the patient out of the vehicle, and then they help remove the patient from the vehicle, and the EMT or paramedic guide them on what they need to do to get them out so that they can be recovered.
Sure. And so, if the car needs to be cut apart, you're there for that. I assume you probably help, just help dispose of some of the debris or things that are in the way, that kind of thing.
We clean up after the fire. We clean up, and usually we'll stay around till they get the vehicle taken out of there and everything's cleaned up, or the police department dismisses everybody.
Sure. Okay, let's just go through what happens when a call comes in.
Well, when a call comes in, the page now it starts. The firemen get the page exactly. It comes over telephones too, doesn't it? Now or no?
No, just
still on pagers. And you respond to the station, get your geared up, and if the officer's there or an officer, he'll tell you which trucks he wants to roll first, and we're in line, and they're out the door and headed for wherever the call is.
So everyone reports to the station no matter where they live and how close they are to the fire or the accident.
Yep.
And then they have to put their gear on and they get instructions on what truck's going and where.
Full gear, yeah. And then they get instructions for what to do when they're there by the chief or whoever the officer is.
And you were explaining a little bit about how usually the driver of the truck is also the man on the bumper?
Yes. Usually the driver of the truck is a man who mans the pump, and he stays with the truck and the pump during the whole thing until it's over with, unless he gets somebody else to relieve him, but he stays right with the truck.
And you were also describing that maybe some of the younger firefighters are the ones that usually go inside the building, and some of the older ones are outside helping control the fire and run the trucks.
Yep, because the air packs that we put on and all that, they're very heavy and it's awful strenuous crawling around inside the fire. So we usually try to keep the younger ones going in, and if we run out of younger ones, then the older ones take over.
Sure. Well, Grundy Center has had some really significant fires in its history, and you guys have been on the department for quite a while. So, Kevin, you've been on for 45 years, and now you're retired.
Yes.
And Daryl, you're on 47 years, and you're still going.
Yep.
Okay. Can you tell me about some of the fires that you remember from Grundy Center? Specifically some of the more important ones.
Well, the first major fire I responded to, I'd only been on about three years or so. It was in '75. It was the Shillring's jewelry store, and it had a lawyer's office and a couple other businesses in it, and the building was pretty much destroyed. And that was back when we had received the fire calls on a phone. And
can you explain how that came in?
It would come in on two bars. The first bar was the one that actually heard the person who was calling in for the fire, and it would ring 18 phones at one time. It would just be a steady ring until it was answered, and then the sheriff's office dispatcher, he would ring the second bar and tell everybody to go to the station. That's how they responded back then. They didn't have pagers or radios back then.
Sure. And so the Schillings fire is where the current law offices are in Grundy Center. And can you describe that fire? There was several apartments above.
Yes, it was a two-story building, and there was apartments up there on the second floor. I believe there was about 5 apartments total, and they were all occupied at the time. And I didn't get there right away. I was getting ready for work, and I was on the second bar. And they had gotten everybody out by the time I got there, and so I didn't get involved in that. And then we started fire attack after that, but everybody got out, and nobody was injured during that fire.
But there was something kind of scary that happened in that fire. Can you talk about that?
On the west side towards the courthouse, right next to the street, there were some cars parked there. The firemen had hose strung out along the building, and after the roof collapsed into it, it put stress on the outside wall, and the outside wall came out. And just a few minutes before that, there was about 3 or 4 firemen standing right there next to the wall, but nobody got hurt. They got out of there, and it's no problem.
That's wonderful. Can you describe the Hooks fire to me?
Yes, it was back when Holland had their 4th of July works over their baseball games and all that, and all the firemen, most of the firemen were over there when the call came in all different towns, and it started in the back of the store with a compressor of some type, and by the time the first truck got there, there was a few of us that got there. The front windows had already blown out of the store, and it was shooting aerosol cans out of the building at us and all that. And it didn't take very long, and we had, I think, about every fire department in the county was there with a truck because they were all up at Holland, so we had plenty of help and did get the fire put out.
And this would have been in what year?
85, I believe it was.
85. And so that building would have sat right where the hospice building is currently, and well, I guess where the grassy area is in by the hospice building. So that's kind of across from the soccer fields there. Anything about some of the former captains, or even some longtime Grundy Center residents that were firemen that you would want to mention?
Well, when I started, the fire chief, Roger Moody, and he was on for many, many years still. He passed away, not at a fire or anything, but he was fire chief then, and then Gerald Hoffman became the chief after that, and he was fire chief for quite a few years. Don Rouse was a fire chief for, I think, 4 years in there. All really good fire chiefs, and now we got Nate Capel, who's our fire chief, and he's a very good fire chief.
Let's discuss some of the scarier experiences that you've had as a Grundy Center firefighter. Can you remember some fires that were particularly scary or that were an unusual experience?
We had one west of town, and it was just west of the county shed, about a mile and a half, and got called in, and the garage was on fire. And we took off, and we knew we'd need mutual aid then if it was burning that good. And so Holland was paid for manpower, and they came out, and we also had Rhinebeck en route for hauling water because we had to haul all the water to it. One of the scariest things is not being able to see. The smoke was so bad outside the house as well as in, but they got the garage knocked down. But 2 of Holland's men were going right along the house feeling for the door. They wanted direct access to the fire in the kitchen. And it was an addition to a 2-story house, which that wasn't involved, but it was open to it. They had to block the fire off from the 2-story. Well, everybody made it out of the house, but they were going along pulling the hose, and all of a sudden the one fireman, he'd kind of disappeared. And the one that was with him asked what's wrong. He said he was in water up to his chest. he fell through a koi pond in the ice, and lucky there was somebody right with him that could help pull him up and get him out of there. And he didn't give up. He went to town, got dried off, got some dry clothes, borrowed a firefighter's gear that wasn't there, and come back out and kept at it. So
Wow, that's great.
it worked out great.
Great dedication, yes.
Yeah.
And then there was a Christmas Eve fire as well that you remember clearly.
Yes. Christmas Eve fire was, like I said, holidays, fires don't take a holiday. And the page went off, it was pretty late at night, and said there was an attached garage on a house. And where it was at, it was west of Fern, so it's as far as our system goes to. And I took off with a driver in a grass truck to see what was going on, and the chief had mutual aid paged and that when he got to the station. And you could see the glow from the Wellsburg corner just on 14. It was glowing that good. So we had Stout come with air packs, or they got a cascade system to fill air tanks with, to come up there. And when we got up there, the garage was down and it was burning into the attic. And our truck got up there, and we shut the gas and electric off when we got there. The fireman that was with us, with me, and got that shut off. And then the truck pulled up, and they knew right away what they needed to do. They pulled 2 hose lines and hit it with foam, and the foam just knocked the flames all down and everything. And the Holland fireman was coming up from there. He says it was glowing real orange when he could see, and he said all of a sudden it just disappeared, and they got the fire knocked out. So then it was a matter of cleaning up and making sure there was no hot spots. They had to crawl up in the attic with a thermal camera to find anything that was hot so it wouldn't rekindle. But it worked out great. We got all their presents out. So that made them happy.
That's wonderful. What year would you say that was?
That's been probably all of 10 years ago, probably.
Okay.
I'm guessing.
Not very long ago.
15.
Yeah, 10, 15, yeah.
Something like that.
And do you have any experiences where, your equipment has failed, or you, again, were maybe in fear for your life?
Anything, Daryl, you can think of?
When you go in, it's really hot and the smoke's so bad you can't see where you're at. You just got to feel your way around. And we had one fire here in town that they were refinishing floors and put the rags all in a bucket, and the spontaneous combustion caught the rags on fire and caught the whole house on fire. And so
Yeah, that was
a really hot fire.
Yeah, that was probably the hottest one. Went in with one of the firemen that hadn't been on very long, and that was his first time he went into a house with a mask other than training. And he did good, followed in, and we're looking around, the smoke's thick. All of a sudden we seen a glow up there, so gonna give it a short burst with the hose. All of a sudden glass started exploding. It just shattered. Well, we found out later it was a mirror above the fireplace, that reflection from my light on the helmet.
Oh my gosh.
So that wasn't scary, but it was getting hot enough where it stung your face where your straps on your air mask were, even with a Nomax hood on. And so we took the light, put it down on the floor, and usually there's a 2-foot to 18-inch space down there that's got clear air where you can see. Well, the smoke was rolling on the floor, and we knew it was time to back out because it was getting that hot. We backed out and waited till they got the pressure fan to blow air in to clear the smoke. And once they did that, you could watch the smoke rise from the floor, and when it got about 4 feet up, then we went back in and went at it and knocked the fire down by the kitchen. And when they put the fresh air in, the one window had already blown out on the north, and that sat right south of, or actually where the sheriff's new addition is right now. But the flames come out 10, 15 foot out that window then from there. But it was just taking the hot burning gas out. And
Wow.
When we got back in after we got the fire knocked down and the upstairs searched, we found out there was a TV sitting on a table, like a table next to a couch, and it had started melting down. It got that hot enough. It was sagging down and melting, and it had a hole burnt in a flashlight that was on the helmet, and the shields that are on the helmet were so black you couldn't clean them then. You had to remove and put new ones on. But
Wow.
yeah, it gets pretty tense sometimes.
What does it take to have the kind of bravery to go in to that fire?
Really don't think about it. You just put your mask on and go in and fight the fire. That's about it.
You just learn to control the fear. If you have fear, everybody's going to have fear going in there.
Yeah.
It's the unknown, and you just got to control it. And
Especially the first couple times.
oh yeah. You never really get used to it. Basement fires are probably the scariest because there's usually only one way out of a basement. That's the way you go in, the way you come out. And
Yeah.
that's one of the scariest fires.
Well, and again, you guys, you respond to accidents as well. How do you deal with some of the trauma that you come upon in an accident?
Just do your work that you've got to do to get the people out, and you don't really think about the trauma part of it, and you just get it done and go on.
Probably the worst is if there's kids involved in the accident. Is probably the worst part of it.
Yeah.
You learn to deal with it. And
Sure. Well, it definitely takes a certain person to be able to respond to these emergencies and carry some of the weight of what you see. But yeah, again, we thank you guys for doing that and for being brave and for helping to, help your neighbors and be there when there's an emergency. Can you explain a little bit about how you became involved in the fire department and what you find rewarding about it? Why would you encourage someone to become a firefighter?
well, I guess I was kind of pulled to the fire department. My brother-in-law was on the fire department and talked to me see if I was interested in a friend of his, Bob Grimius, and they kind of pushed me to it to come up and visit during a fire meeting, and that's how you got started. You come in and visit and get to know some of the guys, and then they decide, well, somebody nominates you to be voted on, and you go from there then, and you get voted on and on probation for, I think I was on probation about 6 months and voted on permanently then.
And what did you find rewarding about your time as a firefighter?
Well, got to know a lot of people, and you were just helping the community and helping your friends. It's a small town, you know everybody.
Yeah. What would you like to add?
I was working for the fire chief at the time, and he talked me into coming up, and I went up and got voted on, and been there ever since, and loved every minute of it, helping people. And to me, it's very rewarding just to learn it and help people out and put out the fires and try to save as much property as you possibly can. It's rewarding to do that.
What is the hardest thing about being a firefighter?
Well, you miss a lot of family events, holidays. Like you say, calls come in no matter when, where, what time, and miss birthdays, Christmases, Thanksgivings. It takes a lot of commitment.
Sure.
We're not the only ones committed to the fire department, our families do.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the support.
Yep. Thanks. We get quite a bit of support from the community, so that helps.
Well, we thank you so much for being here today, and we thank you for your service, and thanks for watching. Hi, I'm Holly Jurowski, friend of the Grundy Center Historical Society. If you've enjoyed watching today's podcast, please consider making a donation to the GC Historical Society. It allows us to make more content that shares the stories of our rich history, and you can find the link on our website. As always, like and subscribe this podcast wherever it is that you watch. Thank you.